As a city, we work directly with members of our unhoused community right here in Long Beach. We cover every inch of our city. We're a big city, identifying people experiencing homelessness, and we report that information back to HUD. And here in Long Beach, we also interview the people who are willing to talk with us, and that's not required, but it's an example of how we go above and beyond to better understand the circumstances on the ground. It's important to our staff that we learn. We learn from people experiencing homelessness, including have a better understanding of the challenges that they face. The count wouldn't be possible without hundreds of dedicated volunteers who show up to help make a difference and make sure that this work gets done. I was at this year's homeless count. I was blown away. It was tremendously positive, a great turnout, lots of enthusiasm. These volunteers represent the very best of Long Beach, and I want to thank them for their work. At 4:30 in the morning, January 26th, about 300 people joined us for our point-in-time homeless count. And what I'll tell you, that was the most significant turnout we'd ever had. So it was a great turnout of support. Volunteers collected data. They reached out as caring and concerned neighbors to folks experiencing homelessness and told them about the opportunities and the resources that the city has and things that are in place, mechanisms that are in place to help support them. The city and council declared an emergency proclamation only 16 days prior to the point in time homeless count, and this count now will serve as a baseline moving forward for our work. The 2023 count identified 3,447 people experiencing homelessness in January 2023, compared to 3,296 people in 2022. This is our first time doing a year-over-year count instead of 2 years. And in this year-over-year count, this number signifies a 4.6% increase from last year, which is the smallest increase in numbers that Long Beach has reported since 2019. And so we're really encouraged by that slowing of growth that we've seen since the pandemic. This, in comparison, the number of people experiencing first-time homelessness increased by 18% from 1,549 to 1,827. 53% of those surveyed report experiencing their first episode of homelessness, while 39% are experiencing chronic homelessness, which means that they've been homeless for more than a year and have a disabling condition. Of those surveyed experiencing first-time homelessness, 59% are sheltered, 18% are living in a vehicle, and 19% report experiencing homelessness for less than a year. What it shows is the new group of folks experiencing homelessness are open to accepting services. When services are provided, they do accept those services. That is very promising. It's critically important also to address root causes of homelessness and the housing affordability crisis impacting our region. The emergency proclamation demonstrates our unwavering support to go and strengthen our city's preparedness and ability to respond to homelessness. Next Tuesday at 11 a.m., I'll be giving another update, which we live stream, about the work that's being done in alignment with the new data that we have. And you can visit longbeach.gov/homelessness to learn more about the emergency, which builds on the work that we've been doing in recent years. Currently, there's about 1,300 beds across the city provided by the City of Long Beach and its partners between 2020 and 2022. So since the pandemic, the city has increased the number of locally funded beds from 60 to 520. That's a significant increase in capacity since 2020. This includes 317 non-congregate interim housing beds through the Project Home Key program and other grant programs, plus 125 new congregate interim housing beds up in North Long Beach at the Atlantic Farms Bridge housing site, and additional temporary housing beds. In addition to providing safe places to sleep, these shelters are designed to match people to housing options as they become available and supportive services to move people into permanent housing as quickly as possible. We've maintained a winter shelter for many, many years during the coldest months, and this year, for the first time, we also offered additional beds during inclement weather. When temperatures dropped to the 40s, when we had rain, the city's multi-service center transformed into a warming center, providing 60 beds at night for people experiencing homelessness to have a warm and safe space to sleep. And earlier this month, the city announced plans to open a temporary emergency shelter for people experiencing homelessness. This shelter will offer more than 85 beds and several amenities through July 28th, 2023. In fact, while we are here with you, staff from across the city are preparing to get this shelter open. We got the keys just yesterday, as a matter of fact, and we're planning to open up tonight. So the timing is incredible. We'll start with bringing folks over from Community Hospital, which that program should be ending around April 30th. And once we have those folks settled, we're going to work with Homeless Services staff to work with additional unsheltered individuals to make sure that they settle into the new shelter as well. Now, while we're working on opening an additional space up in North Long Beach at the 78-bed Luxury Inn site, we acquired that back in November 22. This site is expected to open by the end of the year. That will be additional capacity for 78 additional beds on top of everything that we've developed since 2020. In addition, the city has plans to open 33 new modular non-congregate shelter units, tiny homes, to safely house people experiencing homelessness. We're committed to providing shelter beds to our residents who are unhoused. We'll continue to look for opportunities to add both interim housing and permanent supportive housing solutions, and we're working on affordable housing. We continue to work. Our Development Services Department and our Long Beach Community Investment Corporation has continued to ensure that production of new affordable housing takes place in our community. The Spark at Midtown is an example. Bloom at Magnolia, Vistas del Puerto, Las Ventantas have collectively added 121 affordable units, another 190 in development. Further, two projects have been recently proposed, which will provide 156 additional units for those at risk of homelessness. So we're engaging locally with housing providers to make sure that we have meaningful discussions to expand housing in our city. I'd like to now turn it over to our Incident Commander and Director of Health and Human Services Department to get into some more of the finer details of the count and more of our emergency response. Kelly.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning, everybody. It's nice to see everybody here. As the Mayor mentioned, the 2023 count showed a relative stability when compared to our 2022 numbers. We've been working very hard to increase our shelter and to connect people to permanent housing, and we're already seeing promising results. One of these things, for example, is we developed a call center to reach out directly to property owners to work with them to take housing choice vouchers. The Housing Authority was allocated 582 emergency housing vouchers to provide opportunities to be housed for people experiencing homelessness in Long Beach. And to date, more than 539 of people have moved into housing. That means 539 people who were previously homeless are now permanently housed. The Mayor discussed other projects underway to expand temporary and permanent supportive housing in our city. We know that more beds, more interim housing, and more affordable housing are all needed. But we can't build our way out of this crisis. If I could snap my fingers and instantly house every person in the city who is unhoused, it wouldn't mean that we were at zero, because people experiencing homelessness fall into homelessness every day. So people, when we asked what led to their homelessness, 35% said it was due to financial hardship. 27% said it was due to family disruption. And 16% said it was due to eviction. Those things are ongoing, and we need to be paying attention to them. More than half, nearly 53% of people in this year's count said they're experiencing homelessness for the first time. This is up from 47% last year. Of those, approximately one-third, about 200 people, are newly homeless, which means they became homeless in this last year. So within this newly homeless population, there is a shift in the demographics when compared to overall homelessness. Compared to the overall homeless population, the newly homeless are more likely to identify as women or as gender binary, and are more likely to identify as Latinx or Asian Pacific Islander. There's also a greater percentage of students in the overall count, and fewer veterans. In addition, our newly homeless population are more likely to be victims of domestic violence than the rest of the homeless population. A newly homeless respondent is 6 more times as likely to list domestic violence as their cause of homelessness than someone who is not newly homeless. We also we know that people experiencing homelessness, whether they're newly homeless or not, can struggle finding employment in mental health, physical health, and behavioral health needs. We also know that childhood trauma is still highly reported among people experiencing homelessness. Nearly 1 in 5, 19%, of people experiencing homelessness in Long Beach are farmer foster youth. More than 15% have suffered child abuse, and more than 16% have reported being neglected as a child. We also know that there are now too many seniors, those who are 55 and over, that are unhoused. In our 2023 count, more than 1,300 older adults are experiencing homelessness, which is a 45% increase from last year. People between the ages of 25 and 64 make up the majority of our homeless population. These are the prime income earning years, and people who are struggling to earn now will likely receive lower Social Security pensions in the future compared with people who have steady, well-paying jobs in their early years, which means as people get older, they have less income. On the other end of the spectrum, we're also seeing too many young people in our homeless population. At this time, we have more than 200 under the age of 24. And the percent of the population who are students increased from 4.9% to 7.4%. So when we think about prevention, we really need to start to look at our young population. Prevention is essential to our plan to end homelessness. Because if for every person we house, another person becomes homeless, we don't see the numbers change, no matter how many units we build. So what does prevention look like? Let's take a group of adults who have lost their housing for the first time. What does it look like for them? It looks like financial support to help people through tough times and prevent evictions where possible. It looks like access to mental health services, because we know that even people with severe mental illness can receive the treatment and the support to be able to live happy and productive lives with effective treatment. It looks like connecting older adults to services that provide them with food, housing, and health care. It also looks like working with families to enroll in Medi-Cal so that a hospital visit doesn't mean financial ruin. It also looks like support for our Black, Latino, and AAPI communities to address issues brought forward after decades of institutional racism and generational trauma. Next, let's look at teenagers and young adults. What does it mean to prevent tomorrow's adults from falling into homelessness? It means supporting our LGBTQ population, young people, making the city safe for everyone who lives here. It means educating teens and young adults about what healthy romantic relationships look like and the importance of mutual respect. It means helping people find healthy ways to deal with hurt and anger. And it means solutions to community violence so that our children can feel safe on their way to school and home. But homeless prevention begins even earlier than that. When we coach parents on our fatherhood program, that's homeless prevention. When we support first-time mothers in our Black infant health program, that's homelessness prevention. When we support early childhood education so kids enter kindergarten prepared to learn, that is also homeless prevention. We are doing all of these things in our work in the health department across the city and with our community partners. What we are looking at now is how to scale up these programs so that are already working well, and how to expand the scope of those programs that could do even more, and to bring more support from the county and external partners to address mental health, substance use, and other issues that are beyond the city's current scope. It might sound overwhelming, it feels a little overwhelming, but with increased services, housing, and support, we can reduce homelessness in our city. This year, there was a 20% reduction in veteran experiencing homelessness, a result of concerted coordination between the City of Long Beach, the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, and other partnering agencies to find permanent housing for veterans. The Health Department has convened a mental health advisory group to explore ways to increase access to services in Long Beach. This report will be coming to Council next Tuesday. The city is also committed to adding a third REACH team with extended hours, providing alternative crisis to certain calls for services related to people experiencing homelessness. The police department's quality of life team has doubled, and since the emergency was proclaimed on January 10th, more than 145 city staff have come together to take on the response to homelessness. These work groups are taking on everything from technology to land use, and we all meet weekly in the large group to share ideas. By putting our heads together, we've started programs that are making a difference, such as our MAC team, and you'll see our MAC is in Los Altos now, but what you'll see, our vehicle is for our second MAC team. We've opened our sanitation and water filling site for people experiencing homelessness living in recreational vehicles. We launched our new Long Beach Homeless Text Alert program so people experiencing homelessness can get up-to-date information about services. People can text HOME to 99411 to receive notifications. Our new data dashboard was unveiled in March 2023, showcasing our data, demographics, and information on our various programs. And at this coming Saturday from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. at our main health department building at 2525 Grand Ave, we are hosting our second donation drive to collect items for people experiencing homelessness. We have well over 8,000 items already, and we are working to distribute those. So you can check out everything else we're working on, as the mayor said, at longbeach.gov/homelessness. And with that, I'll turn it back over to the mayor.
All right, thank you, Kelly. And we certainly have work to do, but again, this allows us to have a baseline, better understand the circumstances on the ground, and be able to respond appropriately. The data tells us a story. It tells us that we have to maintain a focus on domestic violence. When those incidents happen, it can cause homelessness. It tells us we have to keep an eye on our diverse communities, Latinos, African Americans, API, because they still are overrepresented in this space. It tells us that when we focus, we can make a real difference. We committed to making a difference on veteran homelessness, and you see some of those results here. But if maybe we can, pull out the scalpel and get more focused on, key groups that we know we can impact, like youth. The story shows us that many of the folks experiencing homelessness did experience trauma as a youth. And so by focusing on youth, you create upstream strategies that address root causes that ultimately lead to healthier lives. And so this data is good. It helps us to better understand the circumstance on the ground and be able to respond, bring all of our incredible city team together, all of our community partners together to make a meaningful difference and turn the tide on homelessness. Again, I'm encouraged by the trajectory where things are going, those significant growth spikes that we saw during the pandemic. It shows that part of time is over, and now we work together to better manage this crisis and help as many people as we can. I want to thank all of you for joining us to hear the results. The full 2023 report is publicly available right now at longbeach.gov. We've stepped up a lot over the last 100 days. A lot of that is not reflected in these numbers, but this allows us, again, to have a baseline for next year, which is incredibly important. So we'll now take questions. We have a microphone lined up to the right. Please queue up in line, and we are happy to take questions from the media.
Thank you.
Hi, Christy Hutchings, Press Telegram. You mentioned this just right now briefly about when the 22 results came out. A lot of it was to blame for the pandemic and the economic fallout of that, and we're seeing less of that this year. Can you talk a little bit more about that and whether the economic impacts are still impacting the homeless population in Long Beach and how that's happening?
Sure. I just took a look at the data, but let's pull Kelly up. Kelly, so the question is, there was a story to tell last time about 2022. We knew that was directly impacted by the pandemic. We're relatively flat. Just the growth is the lowest since we've seen in 2019 prior to the pandemic. So we've always seen some level of incremental growth, and it reflects more so the levels prior to the pandemic. So that's a good thing. That means it's beginning to stabilize and normalize. But additionally, we have way more capacity now than we had at the beginning of 2020 through 2022. So we've built capacity to be able to manage this crisis a whole lot better. We've even built additional capacity like the MAC that's behind us, like the data dashboard, like the additional shelter capacity, all those things that have come online since the declaration of emergency. Much of that is not reflected here. And so, you want to add anything to that?
I think when you look at the financial pieces, right? So in the count of last year, I believe 47% of folks said that they fell into homelessness due to financial reasons. And this year it's in the 30s. So we are seeing a decrease in the number of people who are saying that it was due to the financial pieces, which just sort of shows that the economy's gotten a little bit better going forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next question, please.
Hi, Alicia Robinson with the Long Beach Post. Can you talk about how full the emergency shelters have been and how much more need you think there is for additional emergency shelter, how the city plans to address that, and then at what point you would feel comfortable declaring the state of emergency over?
Mm-hmm. I'll let Kelly speak to this condition. They manage the shelters, but I'll tell you, it's a story of capacity. When we add more capacity, we're able to move people from unsheltered homelessness into sheltered homelessness and really connect them more fully to services. Everyone who comes in our shelter accepts some degree of services, so that's certainly important. We think that we certainly need more shelter, permanent supportive housing, transitional housing, and additional things like recuperative care when folks come out of the hospital, additional mental health and behavioral health support and infrastructure. Our homeless emergency strategy talks about really between the 2 and 6 months planting a lot of seeds, and then beyond 6 months, 24-month period, really expanding partnerships with folks like the county and others to expand some of those deeper capacities. We're excited. We're hopeful about the Luxury Inn opportunity in North Long Beach. That's new capacity that we didn't have, and we're going to continue to participate in opportunities with Project Room Key, this Project Home Key with the state, additional rounds. We're going to continue to do that because, again, it's a story of capacity. Now, I'll ask Kelly to respond a bit further, but in terms of the emergency, we've set sort of expectations with folks that the emergency is really about building more capacity to manage this crisis into the future. The numbers we saw during the pandemic, we were not equipped for that years ago. We've done homeless services for many years. We have a great health department, a continuum of care. We have, development services, a housing authority, all of those things, but the crisis outmatched the capacity we had. So the emergency was really about making this a top priority, expanding our capacity, and being able to make some larger commitments toward the future so we can manage it better and save more lives. Now, what I would say is we're not there yet to end the emergency. When we see that we've hit some benchmarks as outlined in our plan, particularly some of the 6-month goals, then we'll explore what does it look like moving forward. Some things we're going to try to implement forever. Some elements that we've seen. For example, our development services team is doing an incredible job with approving applications for housing, for affordable housing. Applications that might have taken 4 to 6 months, we're seeing get done in 1 to 2 months. Those are things that we would love to learn from this experience and continue in perpetuity, if it's possible. Kelly?
Yeah, so in terms of the shelters themselves, all of the interim housing that we brought online has been somewhere around 95% filled to occupancy, between 95 and 98%. So they've been full going forward. And so we are looking for additional opportunities, as the mayor mentioned, to identify additional capacity, ongoing capacity for interim shelter. But we also know it's important to look at our prevention pieces as well, because it's the flow, right? So where are we building the capacities along the way? And so what we really want to be doing is paying attention to our permanent housing stock to build more permanent supportive housing programs, right, and housing, because that's where we want people to be. And then so enhance our prevention, also ensure that there's capacity at the interim level, but we want to be moving people out of the interim level into permanent housing, and that's a key focus for us as well.
Thanks. I think that's right. There's a lot. We have to build housing at every level, and that flow is incredibly important. Where do people go after shelter? Big question to answer. Thank you. Next.
Hello, I'm Parker with Spectrum News. So could you talk more about that, specifically the call center that was set up? Has that been fruitful? I know you're talking about directly reaching out to property owners, so has it worked? Has it created more capacity?
Yeah. No, it's great. We've convened landlords directly. We've set up proactive calls. And Kelly, Shelley could share some of the numbers, but we're seeing higher lease-up rates than this year than we've ever seen. And these are people with vouchers. They're able to pay some degree of rent, right? It's guaranteed income for a landlord, but we hadn't seen the certain levels of adoption. But can you maybe share some of the numbers on outreach?
Yeah, so we interacted probably somewhere with at least 2,000 calls and emails and things like that. Sorry, the wind. Throughout. And through those processes, we had 582 emergency choice vouchers, right, that were very specific to people who are homeless or at risk of homelessness. Of those, we've housed 539 people. So that's the big step. And there was our ability to have the call center, the outreach, the connection with the landlords allowed us to move more quickly in 100 days than we have moved in any other year in the ability to engage people in housing.
Is the call center still going, or is their work finished?
It is still going at this time, yeah.
All right.
I just had one more question.
Yes.
Specifically about the number with newly homeless people reporting like domestic violence like 6 times, they're more likely to do that. I was wondering if you know any of the reason behind that, like why that number has gone up so much. Is it just people are more comfortable reporting it now, or are there external factors that are playing into that?
Yeah, that's a good question, Kelly. That's yours.
So, the pandemic caused a lot of people to be home a lot, right? And it led to a lot of stress. And so what we're seeing is an increase. There are, we've gone from like 200 and some to 900 and some through our counts of people that in their lifetime have had domestic violence. But what we're seeing now in this new population is this increase. And, we do think it's just because of all the different stressors, the being at home and all the things, it's now coming forward in a way that we haven't seen before.
All right, anyone else? Okay. Well, again, I'll tell you, our team's been at this for some time now. We've expanded our capacity. We're ready to roll up our sleeves and take on big challenges. Our community is ready for this, to take it on. We're encouraged by the story that the data tells, and we're ready for the challenge. So I'm just, these are the folks that are on the front lines doing the work every day. So are you guys ready for this challenge?
Yes.
They're ready for the challenge. So, we know that our challenges are great, but when we work together, there's nothing we can't overcome. Thanks so much. We'll now hand it over for interpretation. Thank you so much.
Buenos días a todos. Bienvenidos a la ciudad de Long Beach. Estamos aquí hoy en nuestro nuevo sitio de estacionamiento seguro para hablar sobre los resultados del recuento de personas sin hogar en el momento del conteo de 2023. Primero, quiero establecer un poco de contexto sobre lo que es y cómo funciona. El conteo de personas sin hogar es requerido por HUD para jurisdicciones como el nuestro, que tienen su propio continuo de servicios de atención, que básicamente significa que nosotros como ciudad trabajamos directamente con miembros de nuestra comunidad sin vivienda. Recorremos cada centímetro de la ciudad identificando a las personas experimentando la falta de vivienda y lo informamos a HUD. Aquí en Long Beach también entrevistamos a todas las personas que están dispuestas. Esto no es obligatorio, pero es un ejemplo de cómo hacemos todo lo posible. Es importante para nuestro personal que aprendamos de personas sin hogar, incluyendo qué retos enfrentan. Y el conteo no sería posible sin los cientos de voluntarios dedicados que se prestan para ayudar a realizar el trabajo. Estuve en el conteo de personas sin hogar de este año y quedé impresionado con la positividad y el entusiasmo. Estos voluntarios representan lo mejor de Long Beach y yo quiero agradecerles por su trabajo. A las 4:30 de la mañana del 26 de enero, alrededor de 300 miembros dedicados de nuestra comunidad se reunieron para el recuento de personas sin hogar en el momento del conteo de 2023. Esa es una muestra increíble de apoyo. Los voluntarios no solo recopilaron datos, sino que también se acercaron como vecinos atentos y preocupados a las personas con falta de vivienda. Y les platicaron sobre los servicios que existen para ayudarlos. El Consejo Municipal aprobó la proclamación de emergencia solo 16 días antes del conteo de personas sin hogar, y este conteo ahora sirve como punto de referencia para nuestro trabajo en el futuro. El conteo de 2023 identificó a 3,447 personas con falta de vivienda en enero de 2023, en comparación con 3,296 personas en 2022. Este número significa un aumento del 4.6% con respecto al año pasado, que es el aumento más pequeño que Long Beach ha informado desde 2019. En comparación con el conteo de 2022, el número de personas que están experimentando la falta de vivienda por primera vez aumentó en un 18% de 1,549 a 1,827. 53% de los encuestados reportan haber experimentado por su primer episodio de falta de vivienda, mientras que el 39% está experimentando falta de vivienda crónica, lo que significa que ha estado sin hogar por más de un año y tiene una condición discapacitante. De los encuestados que experimentaron por primera vez la falta de vivienda, el 59% está protegido, el 18% vive en un vehículo y el 19% informa haber estado sin hogar durante menos de un año. Es de vital importancia abordar las causas raíces de la falta de vivienda y la crisis de asequibilidad de la vivienda que afecta a nuestra ciudad y la región. La proclamación de emergencia demuestra nuestro compromiso inquebrantable de hacer todo lo posible para fortalecer la preparación y capacidad de la ciudad para responder a la falta de vivienda. Actualmente hay alrededor de 1,300 camas en Long Beach proporcionada por la ciudad y sus socios. Entre 2020 y 2022, la ciudad incrementó el número de camas provisionales financiadas localmente de 60 a 520. Esto incluye 317 camas de vivienda provisionales no colectivas a través del proyecto Home Key y otros programas de subvenciones, más 125 nuevas camas de viviendas provisionales a través de Atlantic Farms Bridge Housing Community y otras camas temporales. Además de proporcionar un lugar seguro para dormir, esos refugios están diseñados para darles a las personas opciones de vivienda a medida que estén disponibles, con servicios de apoyo para ayudar a las personas a mudarse a una vivienda permanente lo más rápido posible. Durante mucho tiempo hemos mantenido un refugio de invierno durante los meses más fríos y este año, por primera vez, también hemos ofrecido camas adicionales durante el clima inclemente. Cuando las temperaturas cayeron a los 40 y cuando tuvimos lluvia, el Centro de Servicios Múltiples de la ciudad se transformó en un centro de calentamiento, brindando 60 camas cada noche para personas sin hogar, para tener un lugar cálido y seguro para dormir. Y a principios de este mes, la ciudad anunció planes para abrir un nuevo refugio temporal de emergencia para personas que experimentan falta de vivienda. El refugio ofrecerá más de 85 camas y varias comodidades y servicios hasta el 28 de julio de 2023. De hecho, mientras estamos aquí con usted, el personal de toda la ciudad está trabajando arduamente para abrir el refugio. Ayer recibimos las llaves y planeamos abrir esta noche. Comenzaremos trayendo a personas del hospital comunitario hacia el nuevo espacio. Nuestro contrato de arrendamiento termina el 30 de abril. Una vez que hayamos acomodado a esas personas, el personal de servicios para personas sin hogar trabajará con otras personas sin refugio para que ellos también tengan la opción de permanecer en nuestro nuevo refugio temporal. También estamos trabajando en la apertura del sitio Luxury Inn de 78 camas en la parte norte de Long Beach, que adquirimos en noviembre de 2022. Se espera que este sitio abra a finales del año. Además, están en marcha planes para el desarrollo de 33 nuevas unidades de refugio modulares no congregadas, conocidas como tiny homes o casas pequeñas, para albergar de manera segura a las personas sin hogar. Long Beach se compromete a proporcionar camas de refugio a sus residentes que no tienen vivienda y continuaremos buscando oportunidades para agregar tanto viviendas provisionales como viviendas de apoyo permanentes. También estamos trabajando en viviendas asequibles. El Departamento de Servicios de Desarrollo, junto con The Long Beach Community Investment Company, ha continuado asegurando la producción de nuevas unidades de vivienda con servicios de apoyo para las personas experimentando la falta de vivienda. The Spark en Midtown, Bloom en Magnolia, Vistas del Puerto y Las Ventanas han agregado colectivamente 121 unidades y otras 190 están en desarrollo. Además, recientemente se han propuesto 2 nuevos proyectos que proporcionarían 156 nuevas unidades adicionales para aquellos que están experimentando o están en riesgo de quedarse sin hogar. Gracias a todos por acompañarnos hoy para escuchar los resultados del recuento de personas sin hogar en el momento del conteo de 2023. El informe completo de 2023 está disponible en longbeach.gov. Gracias. Mi nombre, Joana, intérprete de español. Joana González.
My name is Tong Rataweng, a Cambodian interpreter or Khmer interpreter. អរុនសួស្តីអ្នកទាំងអស់គ្នាសូមត្រឡប់សូមស្វាគមន៍មកកាន់ទីក្រុងឡុងបិចយើងនៅថ្ងៃនេះនៅទីនេះនៅកន្លែងចតរថយន្តសុវត្ថិភាពថ្មីរបស់យើងដើម្បីពិភាក្សាអំពីលទ្ធផលនៃចំណុចគ្មានផ្ទះសម្បែងនៃការរាប់តាមលំដាប់ពេលវេលាឆ្នាំ2023ឬហៅថា2023 homeless point in time count ជាដំបូងខ្ញុំចង់កំណត់បរិបទតូចមួយអំពីអ្វីនៃរឿងនេះដែលរបៀបដែលវាដំណើរការមានតម្រូវការដោយហេតុអំពីចំនួនគ្មានផ្ទះសម្បែងសម្រាប់យុទ្ធាធិការដូចជាយើងដែលមានខែតតំបន្តផ្ទាល់របស់ពួកគេដែលមានន័យថាយើងជាទីក្រុងមួយការផ្ទាល់ជាមួយសមាជិកនៃសហគមន៍ដែលគ្មានផ្ទះសម្បែងរបស់យើងធ្វើការក្តោបឬដោះស្រាយចំពោះគ្រប់អិញនៃទីក្រុងដោយកំណត់អត្តសញ្ញាណនៃមនុស្សដែលជួបភាពគ្មានផ្ទះសម្បែងហើយយើងរាយការណ៍វាត្រឡប់ទៅហាត់វិញនៅទីនេះនៅទីក្រុងឡុងបិចយើងក៏សម្ភាសជាមួយអ្នកដែលមានឆន្ទៈនេះមិនតម្រូវឲ្យចូលរួមនៅក្នុងការសម្ភាសនោះទេប៉ុន្តែវាជាឧទាហរណ៍មួយរបៀបដែលយើងធ្វើការក្នុងពេលឥឡូវនេះនឹងតម្រូវឲ្យយើងធ្វើការតទៅមុខទៀតវាមានសារៈសំខាន់ចំពោះបុគ្គលិករបស់យើងដែលយើងរៀនអំពីមនុស្សដែលគ្មានផ្ទះភាពសម្បែងរួមទាំងបញ្ហាដែលពួកគេកំពុងតែប្រឈមផងដែរហើយការរាប់នឹងមិនអាចធ្វើទៅបានទេប្រសិនបើគ្មានអ្នកស្ម័គ្រចិត្តរាប់រយនាក់ដែលមកជួយបំពេញការងារនេះខ្ញុំបានចូលរួមរាប់ក្នុងចំនួនមនុស្សដែលគ្មានផ្ទះសម្បែងក្នុងឆ្នាំនេះហើយត្រូវបានភ្ញាក់ផ្អើលដោយភាពវិជ្ជមាននិងភាពសប្បាយរីករាយអ្នកស្ម័គ្រចិត្តទាំងនោះតំណាងឲ្យភាពល្អបំផុតនិងទង្វើល្អបំផុតនៃទីក្រុងឡុងបិចហើយត្រូវបានភ្ញាក់ផ្អើលដោយភាពទាំងនោះអ្នកស្ម័គ្រចិត្តទាំងនេះតំណាងឲ្យភាពល្អបំផុតនៅក្នុងទីក្រុងឡុងបិចហើយខ្ញុំចង់អរគុណពួកគេសម្រាប់ការងាររបស់ពួកគេនៅម៉ោង 4 កន្លះព្រឹកនៅថ្ងៃទី26សមាជិកប្រមាណ300នាក់នៃសហគមន៍របស់យើងបានប្រមូលផ្ដុំគ្នាសម្រាប់ការរាប់ចំនួនមនុស្សដែលគ្មានផ្ទះសម្បែងឆ្នាំ2023នោះគឺជាការបង្ហាញអំពីការគ្រប់គ្រងដែលមិនគួរឲ្យជឿអ្នកស្ម័គ្រចិត្តមិនត្រឹមតែប្រមូលទិន្នន័យប៉ុណ្ណោះទេថែមទាំងបានតាក់ទងទៅអ្នកជិតខាងដែលពួកគេយកចិត្តទុកដាក់និងមានភាពខ្វល់ខ្វាយផងដែរទៅកាន់មនុស្សដែលគ្មានផ្ទះសម្បែងហើយប្រាប់ពួកគេអំពីសេវាកម្មដែលអាចជួយដល់ពួកគេដោយផ្ទាល់ក្រុមប្រឹក្សាក្រុងបានអនុម័តសេចក្តីប្រកាសគ្រាអាសន្នត្រឹមតែ16ថ្ងៃប៉ុណ្ណោះមុនពេលរាប់ចំនួនមនុស្សដែលគ្មានផ្ទះសម្បែងហើយចំនួននេះឥឡូវនេះបម្រើជាមូលដ្ឋានសម្រាប់ការងាររបស់យើងដើម្បីឆ្ពោះទៅមុខការរាប់ឆ្នាំ2023បានកំណត់ឃើញមនុស្សចំនួន3447នាក់ដែលជួបប្រទះនឹងគ្មានភាពសម្បែងនៅក្នុងឆ្នាំ2023ខែមករាធៀបទៅនឹងមនុស្សចំនួន3296នាក់នៅក្នុងឆ្នាំ2022ចំនួននេះបង្ហាញអំពីការកើនឡើងចំនួន 4.16% ធៀបទៅនឹងឆ្នាំមុនដែលជាចំនួនកើនឡើងតិចបំផុតដែលទីក្រុងឡុងបិចបានរាយការណ៍មកនៅក្នុងឆ្នាំ2019ប្រៀបធៀបទៅនឹងការរាប់នាឆ្នាំ2022ចំនួនមនុស្សដែលជួបប្រទះនឹងភាពគ្មានផ្ទះសម្បែងជាលើកដំបូងបានកើនឡើងចំនួន 18% ពី1549នាក់ទៅចំនួនមនុស្សចំនួន1827នាក់ 53% នៃរបាយការណ៍ដែលបានស្ទង់មតិទាំងនោះចំពោះដែលវគ្គដំបូងនៃការដែលគ្មានផ្ទះសម្បែងខណៈពេលដែល 39% កំពុងតែជួបនឹងភាពគ្មានផ្ទះសម្បែងរ៉ាំរ៉ៃដែលមានន័យថាពួកគេគ្មានផ្ទះសម្បែងអស់រយៈពេលជាង1ឆ្នាំទៅហើយនិងពួកគេមានស្ថានភាពពិការក្នុងចំណោមអ្នកឆ្លើយសំណួរដែលបានស្ទង់មតិដែលបានជួបប្រទះគ្មានផ្ទះសម្បែងជាលើកដំបូងចំនួន 59% ត្រូវបានផ្ដល់ជំរុញឲ្យជ្រកកោន 18% កំពុងរស់នៅក្នុងយានជំនិះនិង 19% រាយការណ៍ថាបានជួបប្រទះគ្មានផ្ទះសម្បែងក្នុងរយៈពេលតិចជាងរយៈពេល1ឆ្នាំវាមានសារៈសំខាន់ខ្លាំងណាស់ ក្នុងការដោះស្រាយមូលហេតុនៃភាពដើររបស់ភាពគ្មានផ្ទះសម្បែងនិងវិបត្តិលទ្ធភាពទិញផ្ទះដែលប៉ះពាល់ដល់ទីក្រុងនិងតំបន់របស់យើងការប្រកាសអំពីអាសន្ននិងការបដិញ្ញាចិត្តឥតងាករេរបស់យើងក្នុងការបំពេញការងារនៅក្នុងដែលពាក្យថា all in ឬក៏បំពេញការងារទាំងស្រុងដើម្បីពង្រឹងការត្រៀមខ្លួននិងសមត្ថភាពរបស់ទីក្រុងក្នុងការឆ្លើយតបទៅនឹងភាពផ្ទះគ្មានសម្បែងបច្ចុប្បន្ននេះមានក្រេប្រហែល 1,300 នៅក្នុងទីក្រុងឡុងបិចដែលផ្ដោតដល់ទីក្រុងនិងដៃគូរបស់ពួកគេចន្លោះឆ្នាំ2020និងឆ្នាំ2022ទីក្រុងបានបង្កើនចំនួនក្រេបណ្ដោះអាសន្នដែលផ្ដល់មូលនិធិនៅក្នុងមូលដ្ឋានពី60ទៅ520នេះរួមបញ្ចូលទាំងក្រេលំនៅឋានបណ្ដោះអាសន្នចំនួន317ដែលមិនមែនជាការប្រមូលផ្ដុំគេហៅថាតាមរយៈ Project Home Key និងកម្មវិធីជំនួយផ្សេងទៀតបូករួមទាំងក្រេបណ្ដោះអាសន្នថ្មីចំនួន125ក្រេតាមរយៈលំនៅឋាន Atlantic Farm និងក្រេបណ្ដោះអាសន្នផ្សេងទៀតបន្ថែមពីលើការផ្ដល់កន្លែងដេកប្រកបដោយសុវត្ថិភាពទីជម្រកទាំងនោះត្រូវបានរចនាឡើងដើម្បីផ្គូផ្គងមនុស្សទៅនឹងជម្រើសលំនៅឋាននៅពេលដែលពួកគេអាចរកបានដោយមានសេវាគាំទ្រដើម្បីជួយមនុស្សផ្លាស់ទីលំនៅឋានអចិន្ត្រៃយ៍ឲ្យបានលឿនតាមដែលអាចធ្វើទៅបានយើងបានថែរក្សាជម្រករដូវរងាអស់រយៈពេលជាយូរក្នុងកំឡុងខែដែលត្រជាក់បំផុតហើយនៅក្នុងឆ្នាំនេះគឺជាលើកដំបូងយើងក៏បានផ្ដល់ក្រេបន្ថែមក្នុងអំឡុងពេលមានអាកាសធាតុត្រជាក់ផងដែរនៅពេលដែលសីតុណ្ហភាពធ្លាក់ចុះដល់សតវត្សទី40ដល់ចំនួនទី40នៅពេលនោះ40អង្សាសេហើយនៅពេលនោះដែលយើងមានភ្លៀងមជ្ឈមណ្ឌលសេវាកម្មចម្រុះរបស់យើងកំពុងប្រែក្លាយមជ្ឈមណ្ឌលកំណៅដែលផ្ដល់ក្រេចំនួន60រៀងរាល់យប់សម្រាប់ជនដែលគ្មានផ្ទះសម្បែងដើម្បីឲ្យពួកគេមានភាពកក់ក្ដៅនិងមានសុវត្ថិភាពសម្រាប់ការគេងរបស់ពួកគេហើយនៅដើមខែនេះទីក្រុងបានប្រកាសអំពីផែនការដើម្បីចម្រោកសង្គ្រោះបន្ទាន់ថ្មីមួយសម្រាប់ប្រជាពលរដ្ឋដែលគ្មានផ្ទះសម្បែងចម្រោកនេះនឹងផ្ដល់ក្រេចំនួន85និងសេវាកម្មបន្ថែមទៀតជាច្រើនថ្ងៃរហូតដល់ថ្ងៃទី28ខែកក្កដាឆ្នាំ2023តាមពិតគណៈដែលយើងនៅទីនេះដើម្បីជួយអ្នកបុគ្គលិកមកពីទូទាំងទីក្រុងកំពុងធ្វើការយ៉ាងលំបាកដើម្បីបើកកន្លែងស្នាក់នៅយើងបានទទួលសារកាលពីម្សិលមិញហើយយើងបានគ្រោងនឹងបើកនៅយប់នេះយើងនឹងចាប់ផ្ដើមជាមួយនឹងការនាំយកមនុស្សមកពីមន្ទីរសហគមន៍ទៅកាន់កន្លែងថ្មីការជួលរបស់យើងនៅទីនេះបញ្ចប់នៅថ្ងៃទី30ខែមេសានៅពេលដែលបុគ្គលិករបស់យើងបានទទួលមនុស្សទាំងនោះបានមកតាំងទីលំនៅបុគ្គលិកសេវាកម្មគ្មានផ្ទះសម្បែងនឹងធ្វើការជាមួយនឹងបុគ្គលនិងមនុស្សផ្សេងទៀតដែលគ្មានទីជម្រកដូចនេះពួកគេក៏មានជម្រើសនៅក្នុងការស្នាក់នៅក្នុងជម្រកបណ្ដោះអាសន្នថ្មីរបស់យើងផងដែរយើងក៏កំពុងធ្វើការបើកទីតាំង Luxury Inn ដែលមានក្រេចំនួន78នៅ North Long Beach ដែលយើងទទួលការបានពីខែវិច្ឆិកាឆ្នាំ2022ទីតាំងនោះត្រូវបានរំពឹងថានឹងបើកនៅចុងឆ្នាំនេះលើពីនេះទៅទៀតផែនការគម្រោងកំពុងដំណើរការសម្រាប់ការអភិវឌ្ឍដ៏ធំមួយដែលរកមិនមែនជាការប្រមូលផ្ដុំគ្នាតាម module ថ្មីចំនួន33ក្រេដែលត្រូវបានគេទទួលស្គាល់ថាឈ្មោះ Tiny Home ដើម្បីផ្ដល់ជម្រកដល់ប្រជាពលរដ្ឋដែលគ្មានផ្ទះសម្បែងដោយសុវត្ថិភាពទីក្រុងឡុងបិចបានបដិញ្ញាផ្ដល់ក្រេជម្រកដល់ប្រជាជនរបស់ខ្លួនដែលមិនមានផ្ទះសម្បែងហើយនឹងបន្តស្វែងរកឱកាសក្នុងការបំពេញបន្ថែមទាំងលំនៅឋានបណ្ដោះអាសន្ននិងលំនៅឋានអចិន្ត្រៃយ៍យើងក៏កំពុងធ្វើការតាមលំនៅឋានដែលមានតម្លៃសមរម្យផងដែរនាយកដ្ឋានសេវាអភិវឌ្ឍរួមជាមួយនឹងក្រុមហ៊ុនវិនិយោគសហគមន៍របស់ទីក្រុងឡុងបិចបានបន្តធានានៅការបង្កើតលំនៅឋានថ្មីដែលមានលំនៅឋានតម្លៃសមរម្យជាមួយនឹងសេវាកម្មគាំទ្រដល់ប្រជាពលរដ្ឋដែលគ្មានផ្ទះសម្បែងThe Spark នៅ Midtown Bloom at Magnolia Vista de Porto and Las Vegas គឺបានបូកបញ្ចូលរួមជាមួយគ្នាដែលមានចំនួន121 unit ហើយ190 unit ផ្សេងទៀតកំពុងស្ថិតនៅក្នុងការបង្កើតនិងការអភិវឌ្ឍឬក៏ស្ថិតនៅក្នុងការសាងសង់លើពីនេះទៅទៀតគម្រោងថ្មីចំនួន2ត្រូវបានស្នើឡើងในរយៈពេលថ្មីនេះដែលនឹងផ្ដល់ក្រេបន្ថែមចំនួន156 unit សម្រាប់អ្នកដែលកំពុងជួបប្រទះនៅក្នុងភាពផ្ទះសម្បែងឬក៏ប្រឈមនឹងហានិភ័យនៃគ្មានផ្ទះសម្បែងសូមអរគុណអ្នកទាំងអស់គ្នាដែលបានចូលរួមជាមួយយើងនៅថ្ងៃនេះដើម្បីស្ដាប់លទ្ធផលដែលគ្មានផ្ទះសម្បែងនៅក្នុងឆ្នាំ2023ក្នុងការរាប់លំដាប់តាមពេលវេលារបាយការណ៍ពេញលេញគឺមាននៅគេហទំព័រ longbeach.gov បាទសូមអរគុណសូមជម្រាបលាបាទ